Hi everybody and welcome back. This is another video about another Porsche. There is plenty of Porsches on my channel, and this is dedicated to the potential donor model kit that you can use to finish my 3.0 Porsche RSR. So every time I will make a kit review of this wonderful model made back in the days from Tamiya. It was a Tamiya of the 90s, of course, the golden age of modeling and the golden age of this type of models, And I already made a video about the first potential donors, that is this 934, that in my opinion is the best, even if it is a little bit difficult to find today, and mostly because of the presence of the photo etched set is a little bit more pricey than this other box that we are looking right now. This was what they call it GT2 road version. It is basically the client version. It was the limited edition series of the 993 GT2. This was made late in the 90s, long before the arrival on the market and of the existence of the RWB, the raw Welbegriff cars, that are basically taking inspiration from this type of models. But this was the original one made directly from Porsche for their own client. It was the basic version. It was the street version of what they used to call the 993 RSR. That was the strictly pure racer of the GT2. Tamiya basically made in this year a little bit of mess around this model, because the real ClubSport version is the name of this car in reality. The real 993 ClubSport isn't really exactly this type of model, and this is something new because Tamiya have spoiled us with extremely precise and extremely well done models. This model is extremely well done, but is featuring something that is a kind of hybrid, a very nice hybrid from the real stuff that they try to represent. Let's see shortly which are the difference from the real ClubSport version. Tamiya, in the same years, I think this was a model from there it is, from 2002, so it's referred to the late 90s version of the 993 car. The 993 was the last air-cooled Porsche before the arrival of the market of the 996, where they start to be water-cooled, and changed completely every bit in the model, so they are not sharing anything about anything more else like they did back in the days with this type of model, because anyway the 993 was a kind of rework. It was an up-to-date of the original 911 shape, so basically the doors were the same, the windshield was the same, the windows, all the A, B and C pillars was exactly the same parts coming from the original 911 series. Also the front bonnet was exactly the same stuff, so it was extremely similar. There was also, back in the days, I remember some kind of tuner that were able to offer a fiberglass parts to convert the older G model that were not worth it so much. Just remember that the Porsche became so pricey and so loved by the enthusiasts around the world just in the last decades, because back in the day it was an extremely nice car, but it was not so special. It was not so special like if you're talking of a Ferrari and so on. They always had from their side a very good reliability, always considered of a German vehicle of the early 90s, late 80s, so the quality was anyway related to that type of era. But when they did this model, referred to the racing version, because there was several cars racing in the Japanese tourism championship, they made a little bit of mistake, because if you look carefully to the real picture, if you Google for it after you've seen my video about the 993 RSR, so it's basically this car. This was a kind of lightweight car already prepared by the factory in Zuffenhausen before they started. That today the real racing department from this type of Porsche is the Mantei Racing. This Mantei is the yellow Porsche racing in the Nürburgring and making several records. Usually they are the winners of the 24 hours of the Nordschleife in Germany, And so today Porsche is mostly dedicated to the prototype version, the 919, and that type of hybrid prototype, ultra advanced, the hypercars and so on. Now they made the 963 in this year. This video has been made in 2024. I don't know when I will schedule on the channel, but it's anyway made in 2024. So we are currently the 963 car racing around. So back in the day, it was just Porsche preparing the basic car making a lightweight version of it, making just an extreme setup, a basic setup that usually the private client taking this car directly from Porsche have to make the final evolution of the racing version, you know. So of course the modification that you can do in the motor, and Porsche's was always the best one because it was quite easy to be prepared, and they were nearly always reliable and quite winning car. Porsche never have been the fastest on a track, but it always have been the one that never exploded, never have a problem like Ferrari usually have. You know, I remember a race where I seen in Monza, and it was one of the last 1,000 kilometers of Monza. I think it was the early 90s, you know, and then they were racing also with this car, but with 962, the last evolution of that Porsche 962, and the Ferrari 333 SP, you know, and the speed up, it was huge. This looked like a brick in the middle of the road, so it was completely ridiculous to see against that type of the model. I don't remember if it was this one or the 964, the RS 964, but basically it was the same identical car, you know. Coming back to the model, the mistakes that they did, it was overall about this type of car, because this is basically meant to be the racing version of the 993. But if you see the real picture of the RSR, first of all, and I think it was Renaissance that made this type of modification, the front bumper is totally different from this one. So they used a kind of bumper used probably just in the ClubSport, so probably just in the client version, the original client street version. They need for the rules homologation, I think it was something like 400 cars that today are valued. I had the lucky back in the days to have a client here in Italy from Bergamo that owned the real one, a blue one, and he also showed me the picture because he wanted the model of it, and he was sure that it was basically the same car. But there were some few issues that back in the days was absolutely a nightmare to fix. For example, the main mistake if you want to do a racing version of this one is that basically the rear wing is not this one, but they have a kind of extra, like exactly like in the RWB that is copying the racing version. They have an extra floor over that with much bigger wing over here for the importance in the rear part of the Porsche. Always been a problem on this car. And basically the front end is much lower with 3 different air intakes, or 2 big air intakes. This was even more ridiculous when you take, I think it was the star car, the Titan was the black one, then there is the white and red and blue version of the same identical kit, because in that model, I remember the white and blue, they had the correct image on the coverage of the box, and instead inside the model you will find this part. So if you're unable to build it by yourself, you have to go for extra details, and the only company making them back in the day, I think it was Renaissance model, you know, that sell a kit conversion to make the proper front bumper. That is anyway a little bit tricky, because as you can see inside of the model, the body is molded completely together, so you have to go for a hard cut in that line. That is not so easy. I mean, of course it's easy if you are a skilled modeler, nothing is impossible, nothing is impressive, but if you are just a beginner, this is not so easy to do. You know, it's extremely nice, extremely well done, but it is not representing the RSR, so you cannot basically finish any of the racing Porsche based on the 993 just using this body as it was in the intention of the Tamiya in the beginning, you see. So this is basically just the look of the street version, but the street version is different too, and today is not so incredibly easy. So today I think is much more easy to search around Cats 3D, have it, people making 3D stuff, they do it. But the real ClubSport was a specific version of the 993 that have completely different rims. The rims were not the BBS. The rims were 5-spocket star wheels made in magnesium, dark metal, dark gunmetal. So it was absolutely not this type of wheel, and you cannot finish it. So because this way, it will never exist. I mean, even if people is completely mad, it will never exist anybody that take a so particular and so special Porsche made in so little numbers and place ordinary racing BBS over a car. Doesn't exist. You will keep exactly the original wheel of over the model. And indeed, if you make a model of the road version, you have to make it completely like Porsche did. That's it. More, depending from the country where they were sold. I remember this was it plated also Italian. I don't know if he had the car in his possession, but this client showed me the real car. I have the picture of it with him inside, and also he showed me the real car. But the roll cage, for example, was a kind of two pieces roll cage. So it was a roll cage that had the rear part that was completely done like this one, but the front part can be taken away because for particular regulation like we had in Italy in the 90s, it was not possible to have a street legal car with the roll cage inside because it was considered dangerous, you know, the ridiculous law. But, you know, if you are selling this stuff to clients that are able to pay something like, I think it was half of $500,000 back in the days, in the 90s. Today, if you have a real road version, a real GT2, not a backdated RSR because they were worth nothing. I found some for sale some years ago. There is some websites that are selling used race cars. There is some people that took this are in the version of the real RSR and try to backdate it to make it like a ClubSport version, but it is not matching with the chassis number, so it is a kind of fake stuff, so you cannot do such items. So if you want to do the real version of the street car, you cannot make it. And more, the real car didn't have the fuel intake like the racer. This was the front hole made by racing team, you know, because the tank filler was deep inside here. Instead, the original one have a different, at the ordinary spot, like in the 911s here. I don't know if I have in mine. No, in mine is different. So, so it's an hybrid. Basically, you cannot make a racing version, you cannot make street version, you cannot make anything. You can just build it up. What helps? It is that this is one of the most easiest kit provided by Tamiya, featuring an extremely perfect setup and an overall look that is nearly perfect. So if you want just to spend, I think, neither 10 hours, I think you need to finish this model. Paint this in the color that you prefer. There is some mold line that can be can be cleaned very easy. Engrave maybe some recessed line to make it a little more higher, but you don't have to do anything. It's enough that you mount it. The car is stunner. The car is a stunner. Became exactly as you see here in pictures. Perfect. The setup is really well done. The problem is just what I told you. So just check maybe if you find some images of the real ClubSport of some color that you are interested in do. Also the internal seat was different because, for example, the one of my client had a 2 Recaro racer, you know, not one, and the passenger position was slightly different than the identical copy of the driver position, so that is a leaking of detail in the ClubSport. The model itself is, in my opinion, back in the days was absolutely one of the best ever. You know, I remember when this model arrived on the market, was a blast. I think I bought already 20 years ago, plenty of them. Also because just to find these wheels here, they are perfect for any GT cars, also GT1 or GT2 racing in the 90s. So these rims are a masterpiece, you know, they are really well done. What I cannot understand was why in this model, for a mysterious reason, Tamiya decided to provide you some rain. I don't know if you can see that, rain tires. You see, rain tires. There is a pattern, not so bad, but it's a little bit out of scale, you know. It's really something that you have to send it off because it don't look absolutely correct over a model. I've seen plenty of this model finished with this wheel on. Once again, this is not resembling something used in racing. This is probably a street pattern, you know. But the problem is that even if you take a racing version, I told you that about this 993, I made other 2 boxes, they are exactly the same inside. So you will find this wheel also inside the racer. So you really have to find something that is in a Monsonic race, maybe somewhere in Asia, where they use this type of race, because this was really disappointing, you know. Just place it in an ordinary slick. Why this? No idea. So for the purpose, you know, to be used as a donor for my RSR, then it's absolutely okay, because basically you have the same feature of the other 911, because this part never changed in the 911 series, neither in the 993. So the dashboard is basically identical. The transmission under there is just the same, you know. There is this part can be different because this was a turbo car, and there is the extra exiting from the turbos. It was the twin turbo because the 993 turbo was the twin turbo 993 version. They switched from the first series of the 964 single turbo to the double turbo in the 993, you know. So it is a little bit different, but it's also true that all the part is hidden under the model, you know. Then they had this part, because this was a part of the racer correctly, you know, they had the closed undercarriage around the car that is also featuring the side skirt that goes down another 3 to 4 millimeter in the side. So this is really part of the shape of the car. It's correct for a racer, not so correct for a ClubSport, but the interior, that is the part that we are looking for. So the interior can be absolutely suitable for the fitting idea of the RSR. So if you already made 1 or 2 models, everybody loving cars in 1/24 scale, I think, made a couple of this kit at least. And you can absolutely use the internal hub like a donor for the RSR, because it was basically identical. It is also very, very well done. You see, they also have the spots, is nice. As well as the roll cage, made in this way, is slightly different from the 934 that we've seen in the previous video, but it's resembling really the lines of the roll cage of the 3.0 RSR with the double X section in tubes on doors. So you can use it absolutely. So this is the most important part of the kit that you are going to use, as well as this was the interior part for you see a hybrid version anyway, because you have the street steering wheel together with the Recaro seatbelt. So it's really, Tamiya, what did you do this time? Tamiya, what did you do? More than ever, you have this wonderful finer part that is an extra very, very nice detail present in every kind of RWB model, you know, the typical rear turbo spoiler with the double intakes for the turbo here, and it's absolutely lovely. This is a part that one complete gives a particular really shape, so it's an extra part that you can use for extra purposes and ideas, you know. They also provide 2 type of wings, as we said, first part and the second part of wing, but it is not resembling the real RSR wing that is exactly made like the RWB wing, so it's big, twice wider and longer, so it doesn't match at all with this stuff. More than ever, also you can save, this is quite rare detail, you know, the typical drop mirror sight, you know, that you have in the 993. So if you have, like I have, I think 10 models of this one, I think also you can find this in Amazon for about 20 euros. So it's extremely cheap for the kind of model that they are giving you and for the nice of the details that they are giving you. Despite is a little bit, I don't dare to say fantasy, but not so correct like Tamiya uses to do with this type of models, you know. Last but not least, these details about the interior, you know, the typical Tamiya idea to give you decal seat belts made this way, that they are basically ugly, but you have the instruments made this way. So there is something more that you can use from this kit. So despite all the problem that we just said, despite all the mysterious mistakes that they made on this model, this remains, in my opinion, one of the nicest kit they did. It was really, really sad, because with a little more effort they can do absolutely a nicer job on this kit, making at least a pure racer, you know, making I don't know, a different part directly in plastic, make a little plastic, don't force people to buy wings and to buy the front bumper different in resin, because back in the days that was a conversion that costed more than the entire kit, you know. Then of course the extra companies also made the millions of liveries that they had. There was billions of this car racing in Italy, Germany, France, Le Mans Series, England, UK, everything. So, but as it is from this type of box, this is just an hybrid, so you cannot make a road version correctly and you cannot make a racing version RSR correctly. So my best opinion it is, if you have plenty of them like I do, just use for my models, you know, that is the RWB, so it's a narrow body, but these two are the RSR, so it's perfect for this type of conversion. And of course, forget to tell you, all the transparent parts are fitting perfectly on my model, because the front end, the upper part of the model is coming exactly from a donor kit, resembling exactly the 993 kit. That's it, guys. I hope you liked it. Like and share and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next.